to be.
Yeah, all of StanCifka's decks seem to be targeting aggro a little bit. He's got like control decks targeting aggro, and then Kolento just has traditional control decks. So I feel like that's going to give Kolento a slight edge as these lineups clash together.
Yeah, so we might see a ban on the Paladin coming from StanCifka depending on what comes out. There was a priest play, I believe from Cifka earlier, right? Mm-hmm. So there's also one of those control decks that really changes the way that the control lineups work out. Like if Kolento's playing a control deck and priest is there, then you have to worry about that a lot. And Cthulhu decks are a big portion of what StanCifka's trying to do. I'm not sure how well that's going to pan out against Kolento's lineup. The Rogue might get banned as a result of that.
Yeah, we didn't see any Entombs in that Priest deck or Cabal Shadow Priest yet. Not to say that they aren't there. We just didn't see them. We only saw maybe 2/3 of the deck, so
right.
Maybe they were hiding in that bottom third. But it is likely that if there is an Entomb, it's a one-of, and if there is a Cabal Shadow Priest, that's also a one-of. So this Priest deck may actually not be so great against some of these control decks. It does have that Hunter, though, and we've seen it so far just do exceptionally well against Hunter, winning against Hunter in the last round of this tournament and in the Face It tournament. StanCifka was able to pilot this Cthulhu Priest to great effectiveness against mid-range Hunter, so it has that out going for it, but it's an interesting deck and probably going to be one of the stories of this match if it's able to get a win, and we do see everyone sticking to what they've been doing for the most... Well, actually...
Ban-wise, that Warlock ban from StanCifka is the one that I didn't anticipate. The Rogue ban from Kolento and StanCifka I kind of assumed was going to happen, but the Shaman from Kolento is also weak to the Priest. You know, you mentioned mid-range Hunter, but Shaman could also fall completely flat. If Excavated Evil hits at the perfect time, that can be very difficult. It's just one of those cases when you're playing Cthulhu Priest where you can get the tempo by having 2-cost cards on the board to contest theirs.
Sure. Yeah, the Warlock's
happy.
Ban, yeah, he's really happy about something. Maybe he's just happy about how the bans worked out, I guess, or
maybe
something. He's really happy. Yeah. I think it's interesting, the Warlock ban, right? I don't know.
If you expect your Priest to stick around, maybe Warlock's not so good to face off against.
What sort of Warlock was Kolento running?
Reno Lock.
Yeah, Reno Lock, right? So we saw
no Entombs. It's pretty tough.
Yeah, we saw StanCifka leave up Reno Lock in his previous series and be able to take it out in like first try against Kranich, but
beat Rogue, yeah. He banned Rogue in that one because there was a Rogue to ban, but given that there's none this time, maybe the next best thing to ban in this case was the Warlock.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested not to see the Paladin get banned, though. Maybe there are Entombs in the Priest, then. That would be one reason to leave the Paladin up.
Thoughtsteal!
Thoughtsteal, too, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I expect this series to be long, though. We have all these control decks clashing with each other. The Cthulhu Warrior, the Cthulhu Priest.
The Cthulhu Warrior, the Cthulhu Priest. One of the things that StanCifka does all the time is mimic Life Coach. Basically, he's playing such a slow... Number one, the decks he plays are very slow. He plays control decks, or a very slow gameplay of mid-range / almost control decks. When you see him play, let's say, a Warrior deck that is more on the control side but still plays mid-range, you'll still find that he plays it super slowly. And he used to rope a lot. I think he's gotten a lot quicker at playing than he used to. But still, it's one of those players that just will drag out a series completely. And Kolento also tends to do that as well, and there's many decisions that he hasn't made before, so they're not automatic.
Well, I like that a lot better. I've seen players play extraordinarily fast before. It makes it a lot less enjoyable to watch because you can't actually think about the plays yourself and commentate on them and talk about them if the players are playing exceptionally fast. Like we saw at BlizzCon.
Casey, man. Somebody played that, yeah.
Yeah, the KC versus Inner, it was just like the casters didn't have time to say anything, and it's
you
really
have to be a
hard
rap god.
Yeah, you can't get emotionally invested in the game when everyone's just throwing cards out there. So I like players taking their time, thinking about everything, trying to find those little next-level nuanced plays to gain an edge. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to take your time to play to your best possible ability, even if you think, yeah, I've played this a million times, it's all muscle memory. It allows you to make reads on your opponent and things like that and pull one over on
you just take your time, right? There's a reason why some people practice the same matchup over and over. That being said, we're seeing the StanCifka Shaman mid-range, I'm assuming, against Kolento's controlled Paladin. Now, This is an interesting one because I feel like since the release of the expansion, we've seen a lot of N'Zoth Paladin just fizzle out. Nobody's playing it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so this matchup is not very common. Yeah, you really don't see it much.
But it's not a terrible matchup. You have the board clears. You got the True Silver to clear individual minions. You got the weapon removal for the Doomhammer. You got a lot of heals and a lot of threats. So you got more threats than they have hexes. So at the end of the day, it's a pretty 50-50 matchup for the most part, because nothing's really that favored against Shaman, right? Sometimes you get Shamaned.
Yeah, one of the problems, I think, with this Paladin, with Paladins in general against Shaman, that control list, is we talked about just how important it was to get a Wild Pyromancer equality at some point. Mm-hmm. What mid-range Shaman does, because it's running the Thunderblood Valiants, is it presents threats through their totems alone. So sometimes you're kind of in the same spot as a Control Warrior, right? Sometimes you'll end up with the same problem where you end up having to consecrate or equality pyro a board that doesn't seem that threatening because there might be a Valiant coming out. And that means that if StanCifka played this very patiently, could just steal kills.
He could be the hybrid aggro shaman still, though. We haven't seen any cards that dictate that he's true mid-range yet. And one of the things that's been really kind of falling out of favor for the mid-range shamans is Bloodlust, which in the original mid-range shamans list, when they came to be, mid-range shaman existed in a meta where there was a lot in N'Zoth Paladin, and Bloodlust was one of those cards they just kind of threw in there to make sure they could close out the game against N'Zoth Paladin, and nobody plays Bloodlust anymore. So you could kind of see it maybe falling back in favor of the N'Zoth Paladin a little bit. There's definitely room there.
I think one of the reasons that maybe Bloodlust is played less is because you tend to see a lot of armor, like armor up warrior, where you basically get your board removed on the turn you expected to get the kill, and then suddenly you end up with not even a Thunderblood Valiant to put on the board. Where sometimes you can replenish the board with the Valiant and start pumping it back up. So it would have to be kind of 2 Valiants, 1 Bloodlust, which feels very heavy. But yeah,
it's super heavy for how aggressive the ladder meta especially is. But tournament meta, maybe it can work out. And we see here StanCifka getting out that 4-mana 5/5 taunt just so he can protect his totem golem from the True Silver Champion, making it super awkward for Kolento to really do anything against this board. Because if Kolento were to consecrate and trade into the 5/5, now he's stuck with no equality activator, and his hand's all clunky and awkward, and he'd be re-equipping the True Silver the next turn, and it just gets kind of gross. So it may just have to be dude and pass and just eat a bunch of damage until he eventually gets that equality consecrate. But then StanCifka's going to basically see him dude pass and know there's equality consecrate being set up. And
could he ever just equality dude? Because that does force the 1/1 becomes a problem because he has to remove them every time, and then you can always consecrate on the following turn. Or do you really want to set it up on turn 6? Yeah, you know, it's a weird question, but
it's really awkward. It's really awkward. There could have been a way there that you're right, though, that you just equality to then set up the consecrate for the following turn, because this feels really slow, and you're not even sure if it's mid-range, hybrid, or aggro shaman yet. If it's aggro, or it's not aggro because it's got the 5/5 taunt, but it could be hybrid or mid-range, and if it's hybrid, this is a lot of damage to be taking waiting on this equality consecrate.
Well, if Flame Juggler comes out, gets a chance at killing the 1/1, and it does, which means that suddenly True Silver Champion plus a hit does not kill a 5/5 ever. So it's going to come down to that equality consec. He will be able to stall a little bit with Forbidden Healing, and StanCifka reads into this. I mean, he has 100% information that there is a board clear. Why would you dude pass on such a slow turn? You would at least Outdoor Peacekeeper if you had like anything else.
Mm-hmm. So you can assume equality consecrate is going to be coming down on 6. Right now you have 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. If you play the Tunnel Trog, that gets you up to 12, 13, 14 damage with the Feral Spirits, and then Rockbiter could be lethal. So there's an argument to play Tunnel Trog to set up lethal with the Feral Spirits Overload plus the Rockbiter. So that's why he goes out there and throws it out there. Tries to set up lethal here. So Kolento has got to be afraid of dying. This is scary. Maybe just heal for 10.
You kind of have to. I think you've telegraphed your play already, so it's down to your opponent to figure out if he's going to be able to kill you this turn. If there's Rockbiter or Doomhammer, then you know that's too bad. But honestly, I don't think playing around it at this stage is even remotely something he can do. So he's going to get a board clear, but the amount of damage he's going to be taking, what is that, 11, 12? He's going to be at 15 with Light Lord 2 turns away with a True Silver Champion heal. I think he's fine.
Yeah, you can stabilize behind this for sure. So I imagine StanCifka doesn't commit anything. plays a totem, lowers the cost of his next things from below, and just goes all face. Nothing that he plays will stick through a quality consecrate, so might as well not play anything.
Feral Spirit for 1 wolf, just for justice.
Justice.
You know what we need? We need alternate card art, where Feral Spirit, instead of summoning wolves, summons boars.
You can actually, there are like alternate card art like mods that people have made for Hearthstone.
Right, but that's boring. I want to be able to achieve, like, get an achievement where I unlock feral boars, right? And that gives me like 2 huffers in Shaman.
That'd be kind of cool, yeah. Yeah, they implement that, but
they'll do it one day. They have to milk that. There's no way they don't.
Yeah, get more money out of us, and then have golden alternate card arts that you can buy and stuff like that. And
Ragnaros the Swag Lord comes out with a cap, bling bling. Well, StanCifka is sitting on a pretty good overload hand. He's seen one of the big board clears. If there had been a Pyro equality, it would have come out earlier. So there's no Pyro in that hand, you have to assume. Which means that anything you play is likely to stick.
Yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't play the 7/7 here. You can,
although Peacekeeper would have come out too, right?
Yeah, you can assess that the 3 cards on the left side of Kolento's hand are not Aldor, Peacekeeper, or Humility, because Kolento would have not risked dying. So I think he would have used it on the 5/5 taunt if he had the ability to. So I'd really like to see the 7/7 pushed out.
I agree with you here. I think it's one of those plays you really can't not do if you want to push the most damage. The upside of playing this here is that you're protecting the Trog, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another way to win the match. Interestingly, though, like the Stampeding Kodo has a 50-50 to just hit complete air.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like air. It's not air, but it feels like it.
And it doesn't do that much, but it does a little bit. And Kolento's under so much pressure that he feels like he has to tempo Ooze onto the board, so he's not going to have an answer for Doomhammer if Doomhammer comes out, but he needs to do it just so he doesn't die on the board outright without a Doomhammer.
As it stands, the Doomhammer shows up, and that's it. That's
all over. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the weaknesses of N'Zoth Paladin and why it started falling out of favor is just because against the hybrid aggro shamans, sometimes you just randomly die.
If you have played this, I don't know if you've played any of the Wild so far, but Wild with N'Zoth Paladin is really fun because you do get Sludge Belcher. And you know the reason this deck is so clunky in the current metagame is because we don't have that Belcher for N'Zoth to work with. If we had a 5-drop with Taunt or anything like that, we'd have a much easier time as Paladin surviving into that late game, to where I think in that case, that deck would be tier 1 undoubtedly. Like, it would be really hard to push off.
Well, tier 1 in Wild is N'Zoth Priest, right?
Right, at this point. Yeah. N'Zoth Priest is completely insane.
But anyway, this is a standard tournament, so why are we talking about Wild? But...
Well, because I'm thinking about the weakness of Paladin, as you mentioned, is just the fact that they don't have that mid-game defensive line besides True Silver Champion means they're very vulnerable to just being pushed out by board flood at any point. Because they have Equality Pyro, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kolento did not have a good hand that game. And N'Zoth Paladin gets those clunky hands sometimes, and they just don't do anything against aggressive decks. But N'Zoth Paladin has a lot of outs in the series. I feel like it's going to be fairly favored against the Cthulhu decks from StanCifka, because generally speaking, N'Zoth decks beat Cthulhu decks. It's usually the sequence of how it goes, right? Because they're just a little bit slower and more control-y than the Cthulhu decks are, so most of the time they have a bit of an edge. And StanCifka has 2 Cthulhu decks, so I feel like Kolento's N'Zoth Paladin is going to be able to get an out there. Oh, the Hunter lines
mid-range Hunter against the Priest.
And this is the matchup that StanCifka's Priest has been winning every single tournament he's brought Cthulhu Priest to. It is always, in every Conquest series, lined up against mid-range Hunter and gotten a win first try.
I want to see this win again, just to see whether or not our disbelief of this Cthulhu Priest deck working against mid-range Hunter is founded, or if we're just making stuff up. This hand from Kolento, though, that is a really powerful opener. 3 2-drops right off the bat, with the potential for draw and 2 possible connections for the Houndmaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so good with the coin, because you get to go coin 3-drop into 3-drop, and it farms against Northshire Cleric. I wouldn't even be surprised to see StanCifka hold back the Northshire Cleric, since he doesn't have a Power Word Shield or anything, just to make sure it doesn't just die to coin 3-drop or coin 2-drop. You really want to get lots of value off your Northshire Cleric. It makes your circles and Wild Pyromancer so much more effective to allow you to cycle through your deck.
Yeah, one of the things that Northshire was good against is Leprinomes. The issue is Fiery Bat has a 50% chance of killing it outright when it dies with a Death Rattle, so even if you expect Fiery Bat to come out of the Hunter, it it still feels a bit awkward to play the Northshire. So I think StanCifka is going to be holding on to the Northshire for card draw later on. But there's so many things he needs to do with the hand he's got.
Yeah, but if a 3-2 comes out, the Northshire Cleric accomplishes nothing. It just dies for free. You gain 3 health, and that's not good enough.
Not when you have nothing to do for 3 turns anyway.
Yeah. So we see him just pass, and Kolento has the option of Fiery Bat or coin 2-drop into 2-drop into 2-drop, 1-drop, 4-drop. So I think it's going to go coin 2-drop into 2-drop.
So there's 2 ways to play this, right? Like, one of them is Fiery Bat, and then if he plays Northshire somehow, then you trade, and then if Flame Juggler is your second chance of 50-50ing the Northshire. If you coin 2-drop, then you can't get the Houndmaster out early, but you're also not committing too much to an Arcanine Circle. So you could, like, there's like a few ways to approach this, and the Infested Wolf is also going to let him replenish his board.
Yeah, be able to play around AoEs a little bit, and whereas Houndmaster does leave you open to Alkali Circle really, really, really badly.
Alright, so the Disciple of Cthulhu will find something to kill at least.
Yeah,
that's probably one of the cards StanCifka wanted to find, though. It's one of the better ones that he could have drawn.
It's a little slow, though. So, StanCifka evaluating here. Does he want to trade Northshire Cleric for 3 life? 1 mana gain, 3 life. Is it worth it?
The thing is, you're likely to use your Alkanai as the buffer for Circle of Healing, right? That's usually what's going to happen here. You'll tend to use the Circle with the board clear rather than the Northshire draw. The issue is, this is not a Houndmaster minion. Like, it's really a 3-2. It's not like he's going to buff it up to 5 and then suddenly you have to deal with it. You're killing it anyway next turn, and then you're 2-1 contest whatever he's got on board. So I think staying, like, just hero powering yourself is fine.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think Northshire Cleric's going to be worth more than 3 health later on, or worst case, eventually it's going to be worth 3 health as well on a future turn. So I think you can just pass and see if maybe you get more value out of it later. And see where it goes.
He does play Forbidden Shaping, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forbidden Shaping into Freezing Trap into Frost Giant. That would be something you had to hero power for this turn.
Yeah, he did not play for that out, but I don't think it's going to have very high chance of influencing the game.
I know. It's just one of those things you have to mention when you see Freeze being played. Kolento is currently thinking again. Same situation as earlier.
What are the benefits to playing Flame Juggler over Huge Toad or vice versa?
I mean, either way, he gets a turn 3 that he likes, no matter how I look at this turn. And how much do you want to commit to this priest? You're assuming at this point that he's holding on to some form of AoE. I think, based on the fact that he's played no Beckoner of Evil and no Northshire Powered Shield.
If you play Flame Juggler now, you have a body that can trade into the 2-1 that comes out. But if you hold on to Flame Juggler, you have a 50-50 shot of being able to just kill the 2-1 that you expect to be coming out from your opponent. So that was really the decision there, is do you want to get the guaranteed body to take a favorable trade, or do you want to risk the 50-50 to be able to protect your 3-2 or not? And Kolento feels like risking it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad play necessarily. I mean, he's curving so well in this game. It's incredible.
But then it also impedes your development of the Animal Companion to go at this route as well. So there's a lot of decisions on that. And he hits the Flame Juggler, so he doesn't have to trade in his 3-2 or anything. He's able to continue developing the board and pushing so much damage.
Double Northshire again. StanCifka might be able to get himself some card draw later on. Cthulhu's Chosen is pretty sweet here, given that the first portion of the body is the one that tanks the... Like, the second portion of the body will tank the 1 damage, which is irrelevant, given the fact that it doesn't die. This is one of those cases where the difference between 1 and 2 health is incredibly meaningful when you've got so many little 1 damage things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kolento's got a decent Houndmaster if he wants to trade in so much of his board, but if he doesn't trade in anything, then the 4-2 is able to get so much value here. So if he wants to play Houndmaster, he has to trade. If he doesn't want to play Houndmaster, he could potentially go with like Wolf and then not have to trade as much, or at all.
Do you ever quick shot, trade the Fiery Bat and keep a small board and get an extra hero power in? Because you're afraid of an AoE, like Excavated Evil if you commit too much. Like, how scared are you of AoE? Because it's very slow.
If you're really afraid of Excavated Evil, then I think you want to trade in the 2 minions on the left and then just Houndmaster the Toad and go face. You still need to have...
5-4, right.
Yeah, you need to have a real board presence. If you just do all of the trades and don't play a big minion, then it's awkward. So I like this play, or I like the Houndmaster take the trades. So I think those were the two best options. This one leaves you a little bit more vulnerable to AoE, but if AoE does come out, then you expect it to be Excavated Evil and not Holy Nova, just because they have to fit all those Cthulhu cards in there somehow. So they probably don't run double Excavated, one Holy Nova, which some priests tend to run. So it would be a full board reset, and you'd push through a lot of damage. And with Call of Wild already in your hand and Animal Companion Hero Power to follow this up with a quick shot and stuff, things like that, if they just reset the board and give you tempo,
you're happy.
The hunter, you're happy, yeah.
Lucky for StanCifka, at least he did get the heal enabled with the Twilight Darkmender. The extra, like the Disciple of Cthulhu into the Cthulhu's Chosen gave him a 10-10 Cthulhu. It could have been a disaster if he hadn't hit that second one on curve, or if he didn't pick up the Disciple on time. A little bit difficult there. I mean, again, the same problem for Kolento. What do I do? Like, I was aggressive because I thought that was the way to go, but now I'm facing off against a 6-5. Do you quick shot it, trade the bat, try to get a 50-50 on the 4-1, and then go for Animal Companion?
Yeah, that's the line I like the most. Just roll that Animal Companion first, see what you get, and then assess from there. But most likely just quick shot, trading the Fiery Bat, try and win that 50-50 to maintain the strongest board possible and keep trucking face damage.
You're curving like you got it. You got High Main on 6. You have Houndmaster to buff whatever sticks around on 7. You have Call of the Wild on 8. I think at this point Kolento will have... He's going to have the pressure. The question is whether or not StanCifka will find any AoE to counter it.
Yeah. Well, not really any at this point. It just needs to specifically be
Circle.
Alkanized Circle, yeah. And even then, that leaves the 1/1s from the Infested Wolf around.
Right. So Beast can enable Kill Command and also a Leok from Call of the Wild if that happens. So double trade for Kolento, did not win the 50-50. Picks up Cthulhu, not the most exciting card in the game. Not right now. Do you just... Sylvanas just feels so bad, but you might be able to ping it with Alkanai to steal something. Oh man, ouch.
Potentially you can take the High Main. So if Kolento goes for the High Main, you got the 50-50. Worst case, you take an Infested Wolf, which isn't that bad. It's no High Main, but I mean, it's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes down to you pinging your own Sylvanas, though, which is... number one, you don't heal. Number two, if you pick up the Wolf and High Main stays, you're taking a ton in the process. Oh, that is a draw.
There you go. That's better. I think you just trade the Sylvanas, play that. Also, the number 3 you were about to say probably was you lose your AoE potential. You don't have Alkanized Circle anymore.
Yep. If you miss out on that AoE at some point, then you need it against Call of the Wild, which has, you know, a lot of minions with 4 health, as it turns out. You're in trouble. He's gonna take the 50-50 steal!
Yeah, I guess he feels like he's under so much pressure that he needs to risk it. Goes for it here, gets rewarded. So he felt like his best chance to win this game was the flip of a coin, and turns out on the flip.
So here, one of the upsides for Kolento is that he doesn't have to kill the Alkanai. He can just play Unleash and buff up one of the Hounds and push 6-phase damage, ignore the Alkanai so the opponent can't heal, and then you double Call the Wild back to back.
And both go all face, yeah.
Everything goes phase, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I love
a given.
Nice.
That's a given. Yeah.
That would be 3, 6, 7, 8 damage this turn, and Call of the Wild is potentially only 5 if your entire board gets cleared, but that's pretty unrealistic for StanCifka to clear your entire board, and at this point, you can assume there's no circle, because that Alkanai has been in his hand forever, and there was like 4 opportunities where Alkanai Circle would have been beautiful for StanCifka, or 3, I guess.
Right. So one of the few ways I think StanCifka comes back if you're in Kolento's shoes is the Twin Imps come out at the worst possible time, which would be something like now, when you don't pick up the kill and they clean up the
Circle plus Twin Imps would be disgusting. But he isn't able to make that connection.
As it stands, it looks like StanCifka is going to be forced into playing the Twin Emperors and clean up the board as much as he can. But he knows how much trouble he's in at this point. Like, there's a few owls that could outright kill him, assuming Kolento's hand composition was a bit different. This has been a really interesting match. I wonder if StanCifka is going to be able to pull it off. It's very close. It doesn't look like a winnable position, but the taunts buy him 1 extra turn at least, from what we see.
Yeah, they buy him a lot of time. You can get that other Northshire Cleric out there if he wants. He's already seen the Unleash the Hounds. Usually Unleash the Hounds is a 1-of in the current mid-range hunter builds. Quick Shot's a pretty solid pickup for Kolento, but undoubtedly we're going to see Call of the Wild here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, Is there a world in which you simply... Oh, no. You can't... I was going to say, can you guarantee that maybe your opponent's Akanai never dies? But the 1/1s from the Wolf will always have it happen, even if you trade it away.
Yeah, so it's got to be Call of the Wild and then just take out both of the... Well, you can't even take
out only one. Yeah, you have to take out only one of them, so... Maybe quick shot. No, you have to remove this board. I mean, like, there's no way. I'm looking at this and like, maybe you try to do a fancy play where you push the most damage possible and hope on kill command to come out, but...
Yeah, it's so bad.
Everything is bad, like...
Yeah.
Even this play here, it looked good at first, but now you see the Twin Emperors are just road-blocking the Huffer. He's gonna be stuck at 1 health.
And
the Akanai dies, there's healing, the Shadow Word Death kills your Misha, Flash Heal comes out. You know, I think
he's gonna stabilize.
It's possible.
Yeah, he's got Shadow Word. He clears off the whole board here, and can heal back up, and then Cthulhu next turn.
That is unbelievable. If StanCifka wins this one,
yeah,
100% win rate against mid-range Hunter. Exactly in this spot, I don't think there's anything that can prevent him from healing up all the way back. 13 on his hero. Keeps everything alive. Draws cards. Power Shield. Might as well.
Wow.
So this is where you get Lightwell off of Forbidden Shaping.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't Flash Heal his face.
Yeah, me too. I'd be very surprised, but it's StanCifka. It's happened.
He does like to play greedy, yeah.
Not greedy enough not to take this one, though. I think that one was a pretty obvious one. Gotta clear up the beasts, you never know. Double kill command, quick shot.
This is gonna be the 4th time I've seen this Kasum Priest deck beat Midrange Hunter. And every time it feels like it's just barely able to do it. And
the Wisp. Oh, wait.
Okay.
Now maybe he's back in this.
Yeah. StanCifka's Cthulhu's only a 12/12, so Kolento can likely play around Cthulhu being lethal and potentially set up lethal.
Okay, so let's think this through. If he goes for Unleash, and he ends up killing the Emperor, which takes out that's 4 hounds, so you'd have to quick shot it, but then you don't draw off quick shot. Which doesn't really matter too much, but you could go for Call of the Wild first and then draw off quick shot, pick up a kill command off the top, and then streak everything together.
Well, Call of the Wild hero power is 7 damage next turn. So the board right now is you get 6 hounds. So if you get 6 hounds into hero power, you got to sink in 1 hound in the quick shot. So you get 5, 6, 7 damage this turn, and then you get 7 damage next turn.
So one healing might be 1 off.
Yeah, it's 1 damage off, but it opens you up for the second quick shot top deck to be lethal.
Right.
So he's gonna go for it, and if he finds second quick shot, he wins the game.
And the thing is, even though the Northshires seem like a threat, they're only bad if there's a circle of healing, given the fact that StanCifka has to heal himself this turn. Mm-hmm. If he's gonna heal with a hero power at all. And this is not the circle of healing, so the card draw from the Northshires is now irrelevant this turn. Cthulhu probably coming down. Unless he thinks he has to heal himself, that's right.
He has to, yeah. He knows that's Call of the Wild, right?
Right.
He has to assume either Call of the Wild or Kill Command, so he should definitely heal himself.
He has to heal himself and play Cthulhu's Chosen, Shadow Word Pain to get the high main in.
Mm-hmm. And set up lethal with the high main connection, yeah.
It's double 2 high mains going in phase plus Cthulhu is lethal on the following turn, assuming there's no minions on board at that stage.
And the Wisp adding the extra damage, allowing Kolento for the top deck quick shot to win the game. The Forbidden Shaping for 0 was costly here.
14 Cthulhu, so he might need a tiny bit less. I mean, that Wisp gave Kolento 1 extra damage.
Yeah, if he picks up the quick shot, then the Wisp may have thrown the king. No quick shot for Kolento. He is going to have Call of the Wild hero power, though, to try and look for another out here.
I mean, Cthulhu does not completely demolish him. Is there a way he loses through this? If Cthulhu clearing the entire board would only hit his face for 4, so 4 would mean that there is actually... Yeah, the lethal is there, I think. There's 16... Oh, actually, he's 2 off. Cthulhu can still do it, though, so...
He's got 28 of a health pool right now, and
he needs to not kill
has
2
10,
damage on the minions.
12.
He has to kill Misha for 4 and either not kill Huffer or Leok.
Yeah.
One of them, two of the damage to minions needs to go face, basically.
Can you risk that, though? Because Cthulhu has a pretty good chance of clearing the whole board.
You can kill the Misha with your 4-2 and just do the same thing again, but...
Well, that lowers the odds of...
Of you actually taking the game, yeah.
Yeah. It's risky.
Wow! Alright.
Go with the heal. He's hoping Kolento does not top deck either double Eagle Hornbow, double kill command, or Animal Companion roll Huffer, or quick shot number 2. He's got 6 outs out of like 18 cards.
I think it's pretty... Oh, that's it.
Oh my god, and he runs trackings. So that gives him a lot of outs.
Ouch. StanCifka's face. Wait! He didn't find it!
He didn't find it. He's got a Flame Juggler. Or... Yeah, that's it. It's
Flame
the Flame Juggler.
That's it. You're 50-50 this, Kolento.
50-50 for the win. No, not even 50-50.
Actually, it's the 33%. That is
Can he get there?
Can he get there? He doesn't.
No.
Cthulhu might do it.
Yeah, Cthulhu's gonna end this game now.
StanCifka did it.
Well, he's got to play the High Maiden now, right? To try and avoid dying to Cthulhu.
Yeah, from his perspective, that's the only way. Like, if Cthulhu is there, then he dies.
14 damage.
StanCifka dodged a bullet. That tracking, not finding an out, was really unlikely.
Yeah.
And High Main connects. You know, this High Main that he stole with Sylvanas, that 50-50, definitely turned the game around.
Yeah.
It's been doing so much work for him throughout the turns.
Yeah, Kolento got a bit unlucky there to lose that one, I think it's safe to say. He needed to lose the 50-50 flip on the Sylvanas steal, and then he needed to not find lethal off that tracking there while he had 6 potential lethal outs in his deck, and another tracking.
Right, which he could have also tracked into another out. So he could have dug through a total of 8 cards with the 2 track, well, 7 if you include the second tracking. And yeah, it's just one of those days.
Yeah, he had like 16 to 18 cards left in his deck, and if you count trackings as a potential out, that's like 8 cards he's looking for off of the draw, and he was able to hit one of the trackings. So then the tracking is looking at 7 potential cards while you get to see 3 of your now like 18 to 16
cards,
card
yeah, exactly,
deck,
that are not outs. Like the ones that you throw away are not outs, so that increases the chance of the second tracking, obviously, finding those. So either way, Kolento ends up losing that match, and StanCifka's Priest ends up undefeated against Midrange Hunter, against all odds.
Yeah,
and he's going to have to play his Cthulhu Warrior or his no combo Reno Lock, which is actually really cool, as I don't think we've seen too many of those. They tend to try to combo people down in a way or some way or another. What I like about this deck is that it's very honest. It's just playing minions, and it's like a grinder Reno at this stage.
It's so honest, it's deceptive, though. It's like the Pirates of the Caribbean quote of, like, you can't trust the honest ones or whatever. So, yeah. So it's so honest that it's very deceptive because you play around this burst combo, and they're just playing an honest deck that fights your board with minions.
It's like Ramp Druid back in the days when you didn't see it coming, and it started off the same way as mid-range, and then all of a sudden, bad news.
So, but Kolento most likely has been watching the tournament as it progressed, so he probably knows that by this point that there's no burst combo in StanCifka's Reno Lock, so he'll likely play a little bit differently around it. So that deck has kind of lost a little bit of its edge that it had in the earlier rounds of the tournament when people didn't know that it didn't run combo. Right,
because you don't expect all the minions to come out and tempo you down through board control. One of the things that Kolento has going for himself, though, is the fact that his N'Zoth Paladin should line up pretty well against the rest of the lineup from Cifka. Kolento's going to queue up the Hunter again and hope they can land a win here.
Versus Cthulhu Warrior. High mains are the key, and Kolento's got 2 of them in his deck. A lot of people have been cutting high mains to make the deck more favorable against things like Rogue, and Kolento not targeting Rogue at all, setting up to be able to deal with these control decks, and the Hunter, I feel like, should do a pretty good job. The one thing weighing him down is he runs 2 copies of Unleash, which is virtually useless in this matchup, so that's a bit awkward, but he does have trackings to tracking over those Unleashes and find those high mains and those Call of the Wilds.
Yeah, the ability to I think tracking is a card that's also it's fallen out of favor a lot recently. You'll find that most mid-range hunters run a single copy of it rather than the 2 copies. Even though it lets you thin out that deck for the bad, like you just throw out the bad cards you'll never need, and it's very rare that you get to the bottom of your deck so the stuff you lose is usually not too meaningful.
Yeah, it's just on ladder, a lot of the mid-range hundreds tend to lean away from it just because there's so much aggro on ladder, and you can't really spare the 1 mana against the aggressive decks to be able to actually use the tracking. Whereas against control decks, you have all the time in the world, so you can definitely spare the mana to just find your better cards for the matchup.
Animal Companion. The option. Well, Animal Companion looks good, but if you pick up Huffer, then you're going full aggressive, but you're losing it to a 2/3. And if you play the Grub, then suddenly War Axe, and you've done literally nothing this game.
Yeah. So the safest play was taken by Kolento. He could have went for the Animal Companion to try and find either the Misha or the Leok, but Huffer would likely lead to a huge tempo loss, and this early in the game he can't really afford that. So he goes with the safe play of just playing out the bow, taking care of his opponent's minion.
One of the things that's really interesting about mid-range Hunter nowadays is the fact that they're even more dependent than before on getting on the board, given the fact that they've always been about getting the board control, but there's no longer some kind of powdered shredder shenanigan you can pull off where you just cheat your way in. Mad Scientist, for the few decks who still want to run traps and insist on doing so, doesn't exist anymore, so you don't thin your deck at all. Like, you have to absolutely get curve minions. Huge Toad, King Zealot. Losing that early game is not really something you can do anymore. You used to be able to gamble with Animal Companion a lot more.
Yeah, you used to have Haunted Creeper always sticking around, making Leok not so bad, so things are a bit more awkward for the mid-range hunters early game. And most of your early game relies on like coin flippy things with Huge Toad and Fiery Bat now, which is super awkward. Yeah, Flame Juggler.
Do you pop the bow with do you pop the shield with your bow?
Nah.
Ever? Or
nah, you want your bow to actually be killing things, and the 4/2 is going to trade into one of your guys, and then you can clean it up with the bow later when it actually dies. For now, you can hold on to the bow just in case you find your 1-of Freezing Trap or 2-of Freezing Trap or whatever to be able to get some more bow charges potentially.
We haven't seen any of them in Kolento's deck so far. I think we've seen the Hunter come out 3 times, and not once was there a trap left. Okay. Maybe that's where the trackings went. Like, they took the spots of those. Sure. We've seen a lot of 2-drops. I'm curious.
Yeah, Freezing Trap's a really good tech card if you're trying to build your Hunter to be able to beat control.
Right.
Control decks oftentimes don't flood the board with too many minions, and they usually don't run chargers. So Freezing Trap can usually be set up to completely crush them when they commit to a Karen or a Sylvanas or any sort of big minion.
All right, so StanCifka here's got the opportunity of going for the unstable ghoul, the Ravaging Ghoul, not unstable. Ravaging Ghoul would execute if he really wants to clean up the board completely. That's a very heavy resource commitment. The alternative would be Disciple of Cthulhu with the attack from the 4/2 onto the 2/5, but that means the 2/3 will then have to be dealt with the ghoul later on. So I think going for the tempo play against Hunter is usually going to pay off.
Yeah, it definitely puts Kolento in an awkward spot for sure. Hey, get some value out of Unleash the Hounds this turn if you wanted to. It's a card that you don't normally get any value out of, and it does all right. You get to pick up a 4/1 and keep a Hound on the board to threaten Houndmaster. It's not too bad.
Yeah, StanCifka's got a good follow-up as well with the Disciple of Cthulhu to deal with the 1/1. He could play Acolyte of Pain straight up, though. You've seen a bow.
Yeah,
if this picks up a quick shot, you're really happy. So I think just waiting it out to play the Disciple on something more relevant with Brand Bronzebeard on turn 6. I mean, that's 4 damage to any target of your choice. That's insane. Oh!
Oh, the punish, though. Ouch. Well, at least Brand can't get Kodoed, but still, losing that draw from Acolyte of Pain is absolutely huge, because Hunter with high mains, with Call of the Wild, can really grind out Warrior. So if Warrior's missing their draw, and we just saw StanCifka's draw get taken out without drawing any cards, they can start falling behind and just slowly run out of cards to be able to deal with the pressure from Hunter.
Yeah, it looks like StanCifka's probably just going to opt to go for the Shield Slam plus 2-drop if he wants to. The issue is, if high main comes out at any point past now, I think you're going to be in a bit of trouble if you expend that Shield Slam. What's the alternative? You play like your 2/1 to kill the Hound and then put the Kodo on 3 health, and then what, find a War Axe within 2-3 turns?
Yeah, it's sort of the dance you can play with Brawl. You can let the Kodo get a value trade to be able to stick around and make your Brawl a little bit better, but then you really want to save Brawl for Call of the Wild, so it runs into a lot of problems and weird situations. How much damage can you allow your opponent to deal to your face to try and set up for this Brawl? It gets weird.
Yeah, because Dakota would go face at least 2 more times, one of which would be increased by Leok on turn 8. So then you brawl, and if something... Like, no matter what stays, you're still taking damage on the following turn. So the Shield Slam is the safe way to go about it, but the lack of card draw for StanCifka is crushing. Yeah, that is terrible. And the curve! Oh, goodness, Kolento. You're a god.
His curve's not that strong. You missed high main, but... I still like the Shield Slam from StanCifka, just being extra defensive. You can't really afford to take too much damage.
Is this where we see Fiery Bat kill command? To force the brawl early, and then you go for Call of the Wild?
Well, if he does go with the kill command here, then I feel like StanCifka is safe enough on his life total that he can afford to armor up, let this board stick.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It is...
I mean, stick, I don't know. Fiery Bat at 3 attack is a lot of damage. That's like 7 a turn. So you are undergoing like a huge deficit. But look at that Brand Bronzebeard. That's the opportunity he was waiting for.
Allowed to get this Disciple to Cthulhu out, and he has the Gain 10 in his hand. He just doesn't have very great ways of cleaning up Call of the Wild. He's got Brawl, and his own board kind of dies in the crossfire a little bit, but...
I mean, there might be just an Unleash value play here by Kolento, given that he's got... Because he can kill the Brand with just 2 Hounds, if he wants to, and then play Call of the Wild later on. Lets him weave in an extra hero power, that way he's sure he's not missing out on anything.
I don't know, it's turn 8, usually play Call of the Wild.
You just hover and then trade the bat away. Do you even trade the bat away? Because it protects your Misha, there's 50-50, everything dies. Yeah, he tried.
Second Acolyte's around. The Brawl here is not very strong just because Kolento is able to make so many trades. So
played around Brawl very well.
If you Brawl, win the Brawl, play Acolyte, it's really strong. Other than that, it looks like you're just playing a 6-6 here for 7 to try and contest the board and passing.
Yeah, the lack of card draw, again, is devastating. The thing is, if Leok sticks around, then Acolyte of Pain is still okay, because you might be able to draw 2 cards off of it over the course of 2 turns, and then maybe you'll be able to stabilize with Shield Bearer on 9 and weave in an extra hero power, which, again, is a bit better. So I like the Brawl plus Acolyte of Pain.
Yeah, I guess you're right. You got 66% favorable outcomes for you. The only one that's bad is the Misha, right?
Right.
So StanCifka agrees with you, goes for the Brawl here, tries to get some value out of his Acolyte of Pain.
And he
wins the Brawl! Wow.
Unleash value! Oh wait, there's an Acolyte. That's a bit painful.
Card draw is important though.
Let's see if he picks up the Huffer. He picks up the Misha, which is just as good, honestly. He gets to weave in the extra hero power on top of everything else, gets a good board. Now StanCifka is looking for some removal to get rid of that Misha before he can actually get 1/1s for this Acolyte. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it looks like you just Ancient Shield Bearer and Armor here. Maybe you want to sack in the Acolyte of Pain, try and find another card to play this turn, but I don't think
I'd let them make the trade, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Since you already have a decent turn this turn, I don't think there's any reason to sack it in. I think it's better just to force your opponent to make that trade to be able to gain 3 life. So you just Ancient Shield Bearer Armor, they're forced to trade into your Acolyte of Pain. Got a little more life to work with, it's not too bad.
At the threat of the 1/1s from your Wolf coming back later on, oh goodness, and the high main's dropping out at the end there. The Brawl number 1's already been played. There is a second one in StanCifka's deck, no doubt, and now it's going to come down to whether or not he can find it. This is really sketchy.
Yeah, that is a lot of sticky, mid-rangey minions for Kolento that can push a lot of damage.
And you can even get Unleash value if he wants. Like this is the weird part. As we mentioned early starting the game, oh yeah, Unleash in this matchup usually doesn't do too much. Well, it seems to have worked for him this time around.
It's doing really good work so far this game. Just there's always been 3 minions for Warrior for some reason, which is just really weird. But there you go.
So you can play Unleash technically and trade off your Wolf into Acolyte, and then you after the Unleash, and then you can kill the 2/1.
Mm-hmm. And plop down the high main. It seems really strong.
Yeah. There's no world in which you would trade into the 6/6 to waste all that damage.
Yeah, no way.
Unless he really wants to commit to trading, but I don't think that's something you want to do. With the high main up, you already have initiative.
Yeah, you need to start peeling back that armor. Try and make sure you can get his health total down to where he can't shield slam as easily.
Another shield block for cycle. Is he looking for... He's looking for some kind of whirlwind effect would be good. Like a revenge would be okay. Cthulhu's not bad. It's a 16-16 right now.
Yeah.
And you can make it an 18-18 on the back of this little Cthulhu guy. You pop the wolf, reduce the damage output, and you probably clean up everything next turn.
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. At that and Brawl were the cards that StanCifka was most definitely looking for, so now it's on Kolento to try and close out this game. Facing down the race of the 16-16. And it's going to be pretty hard for him to chip through all of this health that StanCifka has accumulated.
Yeah, the fact that Harrison Jones is there in StanCifka's hand if a bow comes out, there was really no good point for him to play it for tempo anyway. So it's been sitting there unused, and it's going to get value after Cocoon if the bow doesn't get exhausted.
Yeah. So how much life does StanCifka have? He's got 23 life. He's looking at not too much damage coming out from Kolento. Kolento just has the bow after the Cthulhu comes down, right? Or...
So it's down to whether or not Kolento plays Freezing Trap, and if he does, then Cthulhu goes back, and then you eat up 2 cards anyway, and then you can play whatever you want, assuming you even want to go that route. Or just eat up the weapon, make Harrison go back to your hand, and then attack with Cthulhu. Yeah, few ways to play this in the worst-case scenario, and because you have a good worst-case scenario in StanCifka's spot, I think you just go and drop that old god. Quick shots, back-to-back, would that change anything? Not even, honestly. Hunter's Mark, Deadly Shot, those are things that could help.
Yeah, Deadly Shot's what he's scared of, right? That's the only thing Kolento's got, the saving graces. Kolento needs to have Deadly Shot here. We see that it's Kill Command. StanCifka is not totally sure what it is. So, he's got his 2 hyenas. There's no way really for Kolento to lethal StanCifka here, so he really needs to have something. And Houndmaster can save him.
Nope.
Oh, he got the Houndmaster in the joust. It just didn't win the joust, and that's going to be GG. StanCifka, a 3-0 against Kolento right now, just farming this mid-range hunter from Kolento.
Yeah, I think Kolento will have to re-queue it again just for the opportunity to win that one. I think Kolento is of the mind that you don't play your best deck first. You just try to queue in the worst matchup. Every single time I play him, Kolento's about efficiency. You just don't waste my time.
Yeah.
Here's my bad deck. Let's hope I win. The Reno lock at the end there, which is very minion-centric, without the combo, I think that might be better than Burst. What do you think against mid-range hunter?
Yeah, I think the Burst one's probably better. It's like a really bad matchup either way, and just having that Burst to occasionally cheese a victory out has to be a little bit better.
Well, so Shaman.
Yeah, it's interesting that he chooses Shaman. That's probably what he feels is the worst against the Reno lock, because I think Hunter is the best out of Kolento's decks against the Reno Warlock.
Right. Efficiency.
Yeah, so he's just going with the Shaman first, which he believes is his weakest against the Reno lock. All of Kolento's decks seem to line up fairly nicely against this Reno lock, though. Like, Shaman isn't too bad. And
yeah, actually,
Hunter's
you're right.
good,
like, Shaman's okay, and if that's the worst matchup you've got, then you've got Hunter on the back end. There's the N'Zoth Paladin that punishes board extensions. If the if the Warlock is playing for board, you get even better board clears, which is sometimes a problem you've got against burst versions of the Reno.
Yeah, the way that Reno Warlock wins against N'Zoth Paladin is either the burst combo or Jiraxis, and StanCifka is not running the burst combo or Jiraxis. So I believe the N'Zoth Paladin then just becomes favored in that matchup. So we may see a potential reverse sweep here still. It's very possible.
Right. There's I guess Sylvanas in StanCifka's list is okay in the Faceless Manipulator. Mm-hmm. Those can work, and if for the N'Zoth turn you keep Twisting Nether, you might be fine. But that being said, Shaman matchup, 2 Tunnel Trogs in the opener, Tusker Totemic and Feral Spirit. Let's play it out. It's going to be quick.
Yeah.
It could be quick. It really depends on how StanCifka draws past this point. Demon Wrath with a coil takes care of a few minions. Hellfire is, of course, the big card for him here.
Mm-hmm. And Kolento just looking for that Totem Golem. Get the Tunnel Trog, coin Tunnel Trog into Totem Golem start would be insane. We do see Manatide Totem drawn for Kolento, so he is the mid-range variant, not the hybrid variant. And
oh, Doomsayer.
I think you do it.
You have to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah. Your opponent kept both Tunnel Trogs, right? So you've seen that they've kept 2 cards. They didn't go Totem, or they didn't go 1-drop, coin 1-drop, so you can kind of be afraid of potentially Totem Golem coming out next turn. If Totem Golem comes down, your opponent has 5 pressure on the board. If they have Flame Tongue, Rockbite, or Lightning Bolt to follow that up, any of those cards, they can clear the Doomsayer on the second turn, so it's a little greedy to wait on it.
Yeah, especially with just a Coin Feral Spirit putting 5 damage on board, it's too much. And Totem Golem shows up, so Kolento would have had one of the best possible openers for Shaman.
It's still not bad, though. He can still play Tunnel Trog into Totem Golem next turn, and then follow that up with any of his 3 drops.
Right. StanCifka picks up a 1-drop to play with tap, which is great, as I expected him to kind of whiff on the board presence this turn.
Does it accomplish enough to be worth playing, though, or is it better just to hold it in your hand for the Twilight Drake? Or a potential Mountain Giant pickup later on in the game?
Interesting. I don't know. With the Coil, I think I might be inclined to play it just because it deals 2 damage overall. I guess with Demon Wrath, it's even better, but you do have to find it first. So you would tap first and see if you want to play it, I think. That'd be like step 1.
Yeah. Step 1 is definitely tap with this hand.
Yeah.
Because you're tapping regardless. Might as well gain some information. And what do we gain? Ragnaros. I would be inclined to keep it in my hand because next turn I'm not coiling anyway, right? Next turn there's no way you play the Mortal Coil because you have to play the Twilight Drake. So what does the Voidwalker actually contest? It contests only Archant Squire. So
and even then you coil and don't play Drake on that turn?
You just put the damage on it and then play the Drake, but he does have to go for it this turn. Interesting.
Well, Kolento can just play Tunnel Trog Totem Golem that contests the Voidwalker.
Sure.
And I mean, honestly, it just seems so difficult for StanCifka to come back from this opener from Kolento. He's got card draw on the back end of that with the Manatide Totem. I'm assuming there's got to be an Earth Shock in that list, given that it's a pure mid-range, or at least a standard mid-range-ish.
Well, standard mid-range doesn't run any Earth Shocks. Earth Shock's been way out of the meta for a while.
Phased out, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've seen one in Kolento's list earlier, I think. And we saw one in not Oskaka, there was Kranich, I think, playing Shaman. Also played Earth Shock with Azure Drake for Cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, Kranich was the one we saw playing Earth Shock. Maybe Kolento is also doing it. But Kolento here going with the Feral Spirits gives himself 2 mana the following turn to be able to play Totem Golem. StanCifka, he's got the Twilight Drake this turn that can come down.
Twilight Drake is pretty... It's usually like you want to play it as early as possible, of course, but in this spot, I think you know it's just going to die to the board if it goes anywhere. The issue if you're Shaman is you see this come down and you have to answer it given the fact that Shadow Flame could come out. So you can't commit more until you make trades, and if you make trades, then it's still awkward. So it's almost like you have to pray that the Reno Lock is not holding on to any AoE. If there had been Hellfire, you would have seen it. If there had been Shadow Flame, it might be next turn.
Well, Shadow Flame's not that big of a deal. You lose... Like, if he doesn't commit the Totem Golem, you're only losing... you're trading 2 cards for 2 cards at that point. So he comes out in an even exchange and you feel fine about it. Because the Drake dies, the board gets cleared, your opponent develops nothing and surrenders the tempo to you. Ooh, Flame Tongue Totem.
Flame Tongue Totem is pretty sweet. So the issue with that, of course, is you don't buff the Trog to 6, so you can't quite kill the Drake, but you can push a lot of damage this turn. And the question is, of course, do you Totem without committing more, as you mentioned? But I think just getting the discount on Think From Below anyway from Flame Tongue, while still pushing 7 is worth it. I mean, pushing 8, is worth it.
The fear in that play is Hellfire just blowing you out of the water. Then if you at least play Totem Golem, your opponent needs Hellfire and Mortal Coil to blow you out of the water. Otherwise, your Totem Golem threatens the Twilight Drake and you're fine. So I like Totem Golem. If your opponent Shadow Flames, they do trade 2 cards for 3 of your cards, so they slightly get an edge, but your cards are much lower quality than theirs that they're trading for, so it's not too bad of a resource waste, and it plays around Hellfire better.
And you draw a card as well. I think Hellfire would have been played on the turn the Drake was played if they were in his hand, right? So it might be just a single draw. Depending on the read you make, I guess. Alright, well he does go for the push 8 damage to face and demands an answer from Cifka, who doesn't have it right now. Doesn't get much worse for Cifka than this. Can't tap into an answer, there's nothing there. Hellfire is 1 more mana. Demon Wrath that only kills the Trog, and you end up losing your Drake in the exchange. Definitive Argus looks like the only option, just because it stalls a bit longer, but... to fool ourselves, it's not a good defender if it comes out. So...
I guess you can play it. The other play is like tap and hope for what? Dark
I guess
Bomb doesn't
Defender
exist.
sets up a coil, right? Because the Defender can trade into a 3 health minion, whether it's the Totem or one of the Wolves, and then you can Mortal Coil that into something else, possibly. But, yeah, it's rough.
I agree, you have to be fighting for the board here. You can't tap into your AoEs this turn, and if you play them next turn, they're going to be too slow. You're going to be dead.
And he taps.
He taps, though.
And he picks up Ascension, which in this case doesn't do very much. There's 7 damage on board for Kolento. This type of deck usually doesn't burst you down too much. It's a turn before Rockbite or Doomhammer, so you're not dead most of the time. Mm-hmm. But you do have to find something else to do. The straw could grow huge.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing Tuskar Totemic Totem Lightning Bolt coming out, just to play around Shadow Flame a little bit. You know your opponent doesn't have Hellfire. They've had opportunities to play it last turn, the turn before last turn, so they did tap, so they have a decent chance. They have 2 draws at their 20-card deck to try and find it, so they get another tap, so they can have 3 draws in their 20-card deck to find it, so the odds are still in your favor that they don't have Hellfires, so if you just remove this Drake and build board more, I don't know how you lose.
Siphon Soul could stall, but that's not remotely enough, because you'd have to Siphon Soul the Flame Tongue at this stage. He does go for the card draw on the Manatite Totem, will trade away the Feral Spirit into the Drake and push for 6. So he's playing around the possibility of AoE, while still maintaining card draw on the back end, which is important.
Yeah, cycling towards those more bursty cards, trying to find those Doom Hammers, potential Bloodlusts, Thunderbluff Valiants, things that can finish this game out. So that's reasonable line as well.
Yeah, StanCifka still has no good way to handle the board. I mean, even if you had Hellfire, in this case, the Totem Golem lives, and that's 3 damage coming in. You're taking 3 in the process. You'd have to coil on top of it. Siphon Soul, there's no good target. Soulfire, sure. Senjin, Soulfire seems like the only way to stay alive.
You gotta do it. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all, but you don't got other options here, really. He loses Twisting Nether, which is probably fine. Twisting Nether seems like it's a bit too slow, just based on StanCifka's current life total in the situation. And is there a lethal here for Kolento on the back of this Lightning Storm? He's got Lightning Storm, Lightning Bolt to kill the Senjin. That buffs his Trog by 3, making it 7, 10.
And he's got lethal guaranteed with the Rockbiter on the back of that. So there is a lethal with the 1-drop that Kolento has on the board. And that is a really, really fast win, I think. Like, I expected the mid-range Shaman to grind this out a bit longer.
Yeah, the story of the game really was just StanCifka not having any of his AoEs. He didn't have the Demon Wrath, he didn't have the Hellfire, he didn't have the Shadow Flame, he didn't have early minions, he missed Dark Peddler, Imp Gang Boss. His first play was like Twilight Drake, and it just wasn't good enough. Kolento had the Tunnel Trog opening, he was able to curve it out, start snowballing it. There wasn't even a Shadow Bolt from StanCifka, he just had 6, 7, and 8 drops, and that's just not good enough against Shaman.
Well, Kolento will be facing off against the Screen Lock again. He knows full well there's really no burst, so he'll have that information going into it. That might inform the way that he plays the matchups. Now, he's trying to figure out which of my decks is least favored against it so that I can get it out of the way and try to either win or lose as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I guess N'Zoth Paladin's the one, so... The N'Zoth Paladin, I believe, is a slight favorite just because there is no burst combo from the Reno Lock. Reno Lock does have the hero power, though, which gives them so much value going forward. They're able to just tap and just keep generating cards out of their life total and try and snowball that card advantage into a win and keep fighting for the board. And they don't have to be as efficient as the N'Zoth Paladin has to be with their resources because the N'Zoth Paladin just doesn't have as much draw.
Right. Well, Kolento will hold on to this entire starting hand, knowing full well how it's going to go. He will need that Tyrion later on. Again, like going back to StanCifka's Reno Log, what the cards are that help him win, I think it really boils down to Sylvanas getting a really good steal against the N'Zoth Paladin. That's one of the few things you need to get. I think Paladin will also need to get some pretty quote-unquote lucky clears.
If you either steal their Sylvanas or you steal their Tyrion, the N'Zoth Paladin runs out of damage really quick without a Tyrion. If they don't have their... Because Tyrion gives you a 15 damage weapon twice with the N'Zoth Paladin deck. So if you take away 30 damage from their deck, their ability to kill you goes down dramatically, and you can usually find yourself in a pretty good spot.
The funny thing is StanCifka does not run Power Overwhelming baseline in the deck, so he can't just, play against the Sylvanas, his own, and then PO it to have it die and steal it. It's going to have to be a bit of a fancy board trade, which I don't think Kolento will let happen at any point.
Well, one of the key combos that you could do that's really, really strong is the Sylvanas Shadow Flame play. If the Tyrion still has its bubble active, you're going to kill all the other minions and then take the Tyrion, or have a 50-50 if Karen's on the board. So most of the time, you just save Sylvanas for those sort of situations and try and line up the Sylvanas Shadow Flame. Try and maybe save the coin just so if Tyrion comes out on, like, in the earlier stages of the game.
Stages, yes.
Yeah, you can go, like, Sylvanas coin, Shadow Flame, take the Tyrion, and then lights out from there. So I imagine...
the really difficult part is you have to... Like, you can't steal their Sylvanas, so you have to steal their Tyrion almost all the time.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky for sure. And Kolento, meanwhile, has to try and figure out a way to get his Tyrion to die without it getting stolen.
Yeah, another really tough problem. I mean, it's not as though there's an easy way to just equality pyro it on the same turn, given the cost that it has. So you have to make sure that you're timing yourself properly. Do you try to bait a Shadow Flame early? If that's even possible.
Yeah, just mid-range pressure enough to force the Shadow Flame so you feel safe about committing Tyrion is really strong. There are definitely plays there.
Wow. I was going to say, that Giant is pretty tough to handle, but that comes out.
Yeah, now he can Aldor Doomsayer if he wants, or he can just Aldor swing the True Silver. He was really hoping there wasn't anything coming out from StanCifka so that he could Kodo down the Sun Fairy Protector. Or he was hoping maybe it would be the Drake so that he can then still just Kodo it down and have the Kodo, which is a 3/5, doesn't really die to the Drake's 4 power.
I mean, StanCifka does have a Spellbreaker in the deck, which could negate the Aldor Peacekeeper buff. He does have to draw it, however, to get there. So that could be an interesting outcome.
Yeah, Kolento thinking if it's worth swinging at the Giant to make sure to play around that Spellbreaker out, and he does. He uses a True Silver Charge.
And the Fen of Argus coming out. What is that capable of accomplishing? Not much.
Nope. He can go coin tap. Oh, he has 9 cards. 3, 6, 9. Yeah, he can go tap this turn and try and coin Spellbreaker if he wants. Worst case, just throw out one of his cards. Throw out either coin or Mortal Coil, or play Dark Peddler and then throw out the 1-drop if it's useless, which most of the time it is. So I think I like the Dark Peddler, and if you don't get Power of Whelming or some good card, Power of Whelming Soulfire, just play that onto the board to empty your hand out.
So many possibilities.
The Corruption on Doomsayer.
It still goes off.
I know, it's just, I can imagine. So he's going to opt to coil to cycle. Interesting. I might have gone face and cycled my own 2/1. Instead, that's 2 extra damage you could have gotten, and the Doomsayer still goes off.
Yeah, he throws out the coin so that he does not overdraw. Just trying to
2 damage.
Power cycle towards that Sylvanas Shadow Flame, I imagine. Yep. And the Karen always makes things awkward because you would really ideally like to Sylvanas into here. He is just going to go for it. Now he's going to have very limited answers to Tyrion going forward, but he can just snowball the board here, just threatening to be able to take this. Because now Kolento's in an awkward situation where he's got to just trade Karen into it and pass.
Yeah, you're pretty much forced into that spot, right? I mean, I can't really see a world in which you don't do that. The upside is if you deal... You could technically just kill Sylvanas, and if you do so, then you get a Tyrion that doesn't get threatened. Is there ever a world in which you do that? You could humility your own guy and then trade away Karen.
He's going to take the 50-50 on Bane.
I like that. I like it. I think it's good.
This way, Tyrion is super safe coming down next turn. Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. And he gets to develop another thing this turn. Loses the Bane, unfortunately.
Replays True Silver to handle the 4/5 with his 1/1. He has seen Coil, and there's not going to be another one there unless StanCifka got it off of Peddler. Bane of Doom could come out. That's probably one of the best Banes of Doom you're going to get all game.
Looking for the coil. If he doesn't find the coil, maybe he goes with the Bane of Doom, as you said, to protect his... I
would still go for Bane of Doom either way. Even if I find coil, yeah.
Just so your Bane doesn't die to the True Silver. Picks up Power Overwhelming. Chunk of damage.
Doomguard! Unbelievable! Kolento has no... He's going to have to use Humility with the Stampede and Kodo to kill the Doomguard, use the weapon on the 2/2.
Wow.
I mean, I guess alternatively, you just kill the 2/2 play Ragnaros Light Lord, but that really is weak against Siphon Soul, Ragnaros. Yeah, like even a faceless manipulator copying it. I mean, you don't want to give that to that Reno lock. Oh man, that is rough. All right.
That was some sick Bane of Doom value. That's gotta be like one of the best minions in the game to get off Bane of Doom, if not the best. Right?
I'd say right now without Mal'Ganis, it's possibly even better than Jiraxxus in many spots.
Yeah, and better than the 6/8 a lot of times.
Right. Most of the time. I mean, you're sacrificing what, +1/+1 in stats for a charge?
Yeah, which is pretty good. Charge is a nice effect to have. I like Ragnarosing this. What do you think? Are you safer than me?
I think I'd agree with you. I think I'd go Ragnaros and push all the damage I can to face, and if he ends up trading away anything he's got, if he clears the board with Pyro, then I'm happy, because he loses his Ragnaros anyway, and I get to push a ton of damage. I have Soulfire, I have Power of Overwhelming. I think I'm happy to do that. The alternative would be to Alexstrasza before you do that, but then Forbidden Healing comes out anyway. And if you force a Forbidden Healing now, then Alexstrasza is even better on the back of it.
You have like Power of Overwhelming to clear and develop your Drake and all these slower plays, but I don't know. I just believe in the power of the Rag Snipes.
Even if you don't snipe, I still think it's good. So
yeah.
that's how good it is, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's tough though. Your other plays are so good here, and it does look like he's just gonna go with the Power of Overwhelming clear play.
That's good. I mean, it's a good play. The Rag tries to end the game a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. Now I imagine we see either a Kodo combo come out here or just Tyrion being dropped down.
There's the possibility of... I mean, Humility Kodo just seems like the most reasonable.
With Tyrion, you're afraid of Spellbreaker?
You haven't seen it yet? There was a good opportunity to use it on the Giant early game, so it wasn't there, I don't think. Mm-hmm. But if you played Sylvanas so liberally mid-game against Cairn, and you know for a fact he's not going to burst you down, Tyrion could get Faceless, which is also an issue.
Too, yeah.
Faceless Spellbreaker is a disaster.
Yeah.
It's a common disaster from a long time ago.
Well. Yeah, this got out of control really quick.
Yeah, I mean, the StanCifka...
The Doom Guard, man.
Could have been a Flame Imp, could have been a Blood Imp, could have been one of a lot of things, but it was actually a threat. Yeah, and a big one at that.
If that wasn't a Doom Guard, this Tyrion would look so much more appealing.
Yeah. And Kolento doesn't even know what to do. He probably recognizes he's got to go for the Kodo play, get some value out of it at some point. So he's going to have to swing with the weapon to try to get the Ashbringer value. And he also has to dodge the Spellbreaker here.
And the Faceless, yeah.
Sure.
I like the Tyrion play, though. I think you got to get it out there, start generating value off the weapon, and start making things happen here.
Alright, so StanCifka cannot life tap to open with, given that he's got a full hand. The question is, what do I do with this board? Defensive Argus does not let him clear everything. Unless he goes Shadow Bolt Defender and smashes his 2 minions into it, or... Yeah. I mean, that does keep his board alive by a little bit. Weak to Consecration. Does he just Ragnaros this and force Tyrion to trade proactively? And if he does that, then that means the Drake stays at 6 health. It's only weak to Consecration, where he smashes its face into the Drake afterwards, which is probably pretty good for you given the burst you've got. Because you keep the Doom Guard.
Yeah, it's the Ragnaros 50-50, so he's got to be feeling good about that.
Oh!
Wow, the Pyramids are drawn, so Kolento now has a clear, and he's right back in the game.
This is exactly the turn Kolento needed, just to swing the tide a little bit back in his favor. One of the problems we've got though for Kolento is that he does have damage, but there's a Reno on the other side of the board. He knows full well it's somewhere in that deck, and how do you burst your opponent down if you don't pick up N'Zoth really fast?
Well, he has 10, 16 damage worth of weapons over 4 turns. If he just connects the Kodo or his opponent taps, that'll make up enough damage, so
you just gotta dodge the Reno.
Yeah, just dodge the Reno, smash all face, or if he Renos, pick up N'Zoth when they Reno and have the answer.
Yeah, this is going to come down to Kolento picking up that N'Zoth, I think. At this stage, the amount of damage you can push out is not enough to threaten StanCifka.
Yeah,
not
I really
right
like
now.
the play by StanCifka here, making his Emperor Thorsan be that 6/6, so it doesn't die to the weapon, try and force the Kodo to trade in, assuming there's no Consecrate, but Kolento rips the Consecrate off the top, so StanCifka can't be too happy about that. And now the second Kodo is going to come down, and Kolento is just putting on so much pressure. 2 Kodos pushing face now, and the weapon present on the board. He has 11 damage next turn.
One of the big problems for StanCifka is that his opponent knows full well there is no burst in that deck. So if you try to get me low on health, I don't really mind. Like, I know you're not going to charge me to the face with a Leroy Jenkins out of nowhere, even if you've played Emperor before. So could StanCifka find a way to reach with Hellfire, Soulfire for 7 damage sometime soon? That's a possibility, but he'd have to commit minions to the board instead of trying to play the control game.
Yeah, his max reach in the entire deck is 7.
At the moment,
Peddler.
yeah. It's pretty sad. But it's, I mean, I think you could play the Cult Apothecary with Earthring Farseer. I think I'd be happy about that.
Yeah.
You get like 7 health back. And your opponent has to make trades.
Yeah,
Going
not
full
too
face
bad.
is no longer an option. He does play the vendor instead, though.
Kolento's really just out of steam, though. All of his cards do basically nothing at this point in the game. He's got these Kodos to keep pushing face, but he's got to be trading with the Ashbringer now. It's not good enough to just punch him in the face.
Alright, so Forbidden Healing will bring it back up to 30. Well, 28 in this case, but close enough. Same difference.
Yeah.
So N'Zoth, again, is the big deal. But as long as you have Twisting Nether in your back pocket at StanCifka, you can bring out your N'Zoths all you want. I will be wiping this board off. You get your Ashbringer, I'll Reno, and then you're dead. So it's really just a matter of grinding out the Paladin as much as possible, which is what I love about this Reno lock. Like, it's really a grindy Reno version, as opposed to being... Like, even the most basic Reno lock versions tended to have a little bit of damage output. Whether it was the Faceless combo or just a single Leroy with with Power Overwhelming, or just Power Overwhelming, he plays none of that stuff. It's pure grind.
Well, with this offensive Alexstrasza face, I bet you he was wishing he was playing some of that stuff. He's able to put a lot of pressure on Kolento, knock him all the way down to 11. He still has the 7 damage burst in his hand. If any of these minions connect to
this
Kolento's
could be
face.
a win. This is exactly lethal and 25%, right? There is no way StanCifka takes it. I mean, loses to this. The tilt. Oh, the tilt.
Oh, he's emoting. Is he going for it? Or
The eyebrows tell a story of absolute madness. I think we're going to witness history here.
He's going for the 50-50, it looks like.
Either
He's
it hits
thinking about it.
or it doesn't hit.
All right, his 25% chance to win the game on the spot, and he assumes if Alexstrasza dies that he's still alive because StanCifka's deck runs no burst, but StanCifka has his max burst of 7 in hand, so it needs to go face for Kolento to win this game.
And it doesn't.
And
so the history was denied. There's no history being witnessed here. StanCifka will take it 4-1 over Kolento in this match there. That was a really... That could have been a really flashy finish for that Paladin deck there.
Yeah, it was 25% chance, I guess, you know? And I assume Kolento thought he would still be alive if it hits the Alex,
Right.
so in his mind it's a 50-50, but we did see StanCifka had the Soulfire and the Hellfire to close out the game if he was still alive.
Yeah, that's right. So that being said, guys, we'll be taking a break. We have another match, I think, coming up with the losers of this. So Kolento will be facing off against, I believe, Oskaka in the next match. So we'll be right back, guys. Taking a short break. Stay tuned. Or not.
Maybe we're